Hey folks, this is Kelani. With Raids and Mythic Plus just around the corner, many people will be stocking up on consumables and kitting themselves out in all of the best gear with all of the right enchants, just to make sure they're in tip-top condition. While you might be along for that very same ride, it's also an amazing opportunity to make a whole sack of gold for yourself. The initial gold rush of a new expansion might be dwindling just a little bit, but there's nothing quite like a new round of content, and especially a new raid tier to really get players to spend mountains of gold. So let's have a look at what you can do to make your bit of spare change this coming week and in the weeks to come with almost any professions at your disposal. First things first, no matter what you end up doing, chances are you can nab yourself a handy dandy enchant to speed up the entire process. There's an enchant to speed up your gathering of herbs, ores and skins, so if you go the gathering route be sure to pick up the appropriate enchant, and then there's also one to speed up crafting which works for practically every profession which is creating something. Chances are you're going to spend a lot of time with these professions. It makes no sense to forego a simple enchant that doubles the speed of everything, so pick one up before you start. Depending on how much effort and thought you want to throw into this kind of thing, there's different options for how you can really take advantage of the raids opening up. I've seen a lot of players asking what the best professions are to make gold these days, but honestly, if you take a little bit of time to learn the recipes you have access to, and how you can pick up your raw materials fairly cheaply, you can make gold with any profession. Some will do better than others, but those professions typically require more time and effort. If you're looking for something relaxing and chill to do that doesn't require much effort but still want to rake in the gold coins like crazy, gathering is probably your best bet. Ores are still fairly valuable on my server, especially Storm Silver, so if you want to go mining that's still a perfectly viable option. Skinning is where skinning usually is, very easy, very bountiful, but your prices are going to be lower because of how farming skins works. You create your own nodes which makes it significantly faster to farm up leather, scales and bones, but if that's what you want to do, it can still be profitable. If you're interested in the best gathering profession, it's still going to be herbalism. The main reason for this right now is potions and flasks. Everyone who wants to take raiding at least semi-seriously will be stocking up on potions and flasks for their very first raid week in Uldir. This week and next week are going to be the most profitable, simply because Heroic opens up for the first time this week and Mythic opens up for the first time next week. The excitement and gold spending really only goes down from here, so get on it while it's hot. Herbs supply the alchemists who are going to be pumping out potion after potion and flask after flask, desperately trying to soak up as much of the current gold flowing into the auction house as possible. If you want your slice of the pie, herbalism is the way to go. You can run through pretty much any zone and find most herbs, keep your fingers crossed and you might come across a few anchorweed. They're going to make up a huge chunk of your cash flow as a herbalist going into a raid tier. If you end up picking up herbalism for some relaxing gathering time, be sure to hold on to your herbs until reset day rolls around. They're probably going to spike in price sometime during the peak raiding hours. But there is another pseudo-gathering profession which everyone has access to, which is quite profitable right now. If you haven't looked at fishing in a long while, Battle for Azeroth might just be the expansion to dust off your old fishing pole. Fishing in BFA is very different from Legion. There's no artifact, so there's a little bit less excitement, but also a lot less complexity. We're back to just swinging out your line and hoping you catch something good. So the main reason fishing is going to be profitable is because it supplies a few requirements of the new feasts in Battle for Azeroth. Potions, flasks and food. They're the three things everyone will be stocking up on to get ready for the raid. The 100 stat feasts are the best food right now, and they require two types of fish. The first is Frenzied Fangtooth and the second is Red Tail Loach. The Frenzied Fangtooth can be found while fishing on any coast of the Kulturas zone, while the Red Tail Loach can only be found while fishing in rivers throughout Zandalar. Now if you haven't looked into fishing at all in Battle for Azeroth, there's a new mount which can be caught while fishing on the coast. That means a lot of folks are fishing on the coast with the intent of someday hooking that mount. As a side effect, the supply of coastal or seawater fish is a lot higher. You don't really get anything special for fishing in the freshwater rivers of BFA, so fish like the red-tail loach are in shorter supply. That means they're typically worth a bit more, so if you want to fish for profit, go fishing in some Zandalar river water for those red-tail loach. Be sure to check your auction house prices before heading out though. If everyone starts fishing in the rivers, you might actually see more profit from supplying the frenzied fangtooth. It wouldn't hurt to check the prices of sand shifters and Tiragard perch either, both of which are used in the less expensive feast. Sure, it's not the best food out there, but some folks will still buy it up to use for mythic dungeons and more casual raid settings. Sand shifters can be caught on the coasts of Zandalar, while the Tiragard perch can be found in the freshwater rivers of Kulturas, so a bit of a swapsies there from the higher tier feast. There's also a rare fish called the midnight salmon, which can be caught pretty much anywhere in Battle for Azeroth. It's a nice little bonus. They're also required for the best feasts and are currently priced quite handsomely. On my server they go from anywhere between 600 gold and 1000 gold each, depending on the day and the buyers in trade. That's just some extra gold right there if you happen to get lucky. What's interesting about the midnight salmon is that they're actually caught more often between 6:30 PM and 6:30 AM, so if you play a lot during the evenings or you're a true night owl, you can end up getting a lot more profit out of fishing. And when compared to herbing, mining or skinning, you don't have to go anywhere at all. You can park your butt down in a nice cozy spot and fish to your heart's content. If you can keep one eye on the bauble, you can probably even watch a show or two while reeling in the gold. Now obviously selling off raw products can net you a bit of gold, but you can also go one step further and make the feasts and whatnot that people will be scrambling for. Leveling up cooking is fairly straightforward in Battle for Azeroth, and you only need to get to 110 to create the 100 stat feasts. I think it cost me a few thousand gold in an hour of time just cooking up the simple recipes until I hit 110, buying everything I needed from the auction house and the cooking vendors. You can pick up the higher ranked feast recipes from the Tortolan Emissary vendor too, so make sure you look into that before you start cooking any feasts. Honestly, if you start now, you might be able to get a few good deals on some of the other materials required for the feasts, but I wouldn't really bother buying anything from Tuesday to Friday. Wait for the weekend to stock up, then sell everything during peak raiding times. Your feasts, food or fish will fly off the shelves. That's all for the easy peasy laid back gathering gold making. How about some real crafting? Well, I already mentioned alchemy, and this one's really simple actually. Level up your alchemy, learn all of the potion and flask recipes, and buy all of the rank ups you have the reputation for. If you're revered with everyone at this point, you should be able to get rank 3s of every potion and flask. All that's left to do is pick up some herbs to make your goods. You can hit up the auction house or you can go farming for yourself. If you farm for yourself, I would highly recommend looking into a server hop add-on. While they have a pretty bad rep for causing issues and misusing the group finder tool to hop around different shards and servers, it can be incredibly profitable if you're a gatherer. The chaps who are raking in thousands of herbs and ores on gatherers, they're not running around zones, they're staying in 1 or 2 locations which they know to have plenty of nodes that can spawn, and then they just hop from shard to shard, stopping only to pick up their gathering nodes. If you really want to be efficient, that's the best way to go about it. You can still buy all of your herbs and make a profit though, especially if you're rocking rank 3 potions and flasks. Rank 3 will get you a chance to proc some extra potions or flasks, which is basically just free money. Again, stock up on the weekend and sell your wares when the raids reset. But alchemy and cooking don't have to have all of the fun. The 3 typical crafting professions of blacksmithing, leatherworking and tailoring can still be incredibly profitable with a little bit of know-how and a smidge of luck. So most of the stuff these professions can craft at the higher end that people consider to be useful or worthwhile are bind on pickup, most notably the higher item level gear available. But that's not really where I would be looking if I wanted to make some gold. The item level 300 crafted gear might still surprise you. I've been crafting with tailoring ever since the expansion launched, and I've made quite a good chunk of gold from the item level 300 gear alone. All of the professions can make item level 300 gear, and there's something interesting about the way the ranks work. You don't have to level up to gain ranks, you don't have to do world quests or get rep, but you do have to PvP a little bit. These rank ups can be purchased with marks of honor from the PvP vendors, so if you don't have any marks, go knock out a few BGs to gather a few up, but chances are you probably have a few lying around, maybe on some alts from Legion. Marks of honor are bind on accounts, so you can send them to any of your toons. Gather a few up, buy some rank 3 recipes, and you should have a little gold making machine. I would recommend taking the professions that match up with the gear type of the character you play the most. If you play a mage a lot, take tailoring. If you play a paladin, consider taking blacksmithing. This is mainly because the gear you get on those characters that ends up in the scrapper will be supplying your gold making as well. As a mage, I get so much deep sea satin and tide spray linen that I can always make a few extra items on top of the materials I buy from the auction house, which is again basically free gold. I think tailoring is the easiest to set up, because the materials required are fairly cheap and plentiful, and you only have 2 materials to manage: Tidespray Linen for the common goods and Deep Sea Satin for the uncommon goods. Leatherworkers have leather, scales and bones to play about with, and blacksmiths have 3 different ores which are all typically quite pricey. One of the main restrictions you're likely to run into with crafting in these professions is expulsum, which actually shouldn't be an issue if you have enough materials to work with. For tailoring, you take your Tidespray Linen, craft the cheapest recipe available, the green braces, and throw them all in the scrapper. The item level 300 gear doesn't require any linen, just Deep Sea Satin and expulsum. So your linen becomes expulsum through braces and the scrapper, and your Deep Sea Satin turns into the actual gear you're going to sell. My crafting cost for each expulsum is just under 400 gold while buying my Tidespray Linen at 6 gold each, assuming a 16% chance for the expulsum, so the recipes which cost 30 Deep Sea Satin have a total cost of 1000 gold when I can nab the satin for 20 gold each. And it's still falling pretty fast on my server. So selling any of these crafted items above 1000 gold is a nice bit of profit, but these crafted items can proc to 310 epics, which I've been selling for a huge profit since the start of the expansion. The first week these items were going above 40,000 gold for a 310 epic, but have since lowered to about 10 to 15, sometimes going above 20k for some items at some points in time, which is still a crazy profit when all is said and done. Obviously you would have to punch in your own numbers to see if anything is going to be profitable, and I think tailoring is still the cheapest source of expulsum, which is always going to help, but I just want to throw it out there. These professions can still be hugely profitable if you know what you're doing. And then we also have our good friend Enchanting. This probably should have been a little higher in our list of professions that make boatloads of gold, but I wanted to lay out the crafting professions first because an enchanter is nothing without some enchanting materials, especially those elusive crystals. Now the great thing about item level 300 crafted items is that the blues are guaranteed to give you shards, but the epics will give you crystals. So even if the price of those epics drops below the price of a crystal, creating them to disenchant should still be more than worthwhile. You can make a lot of gold by shuffling your raw materials into enchanting materials via a crafting profession, even more so if you create enchants with them and sell them on raid reset days. Weapon enchants have made a return, so this time we have ring enchants and weapon enchants to sell. Ring enchants typically sold very quickly in Legion, and weapon enchants are shaping up to be pretty powerful, so they're a must-have for any serious raider. If anyone gets lucky enough to receive a raid weapon that very first week, you can guarantee they'll be hopping, skipping and jumping to their nearest auction house to pluck up their enchant of choice. The only problem with enchanting tends to be the speed of which goods are sold most of the time. Raid nights are great. Tuesdays, Wednesdays and Thursdays, but any other time is usually pretty slow. But there's still gold to be made, and even more gold if you can save a bit of money by crafting your crystals instead of having to buy them. Now as for Inscription, that ship has probably sailed for the most part. You can still make some decent gold from the first round of Vantus runes, so that's maybe something to think about. The other big sellers are tomes and codexes, because most people will at least want the option to change their talents around mid-raid without having to Hearthstone out. Seriously, anyone who hearths out these days just to change a talent is just wasting time. And we want them to buy our tomes, obviously, so there's a little bit of hope for scribes, but perhaps not as much as the very start of the expansion. And I don't think you can make gold with engineering at this point, at least not with any recipe relating to BFA. You're probably just holding out for those mounts to sell later on down the line, but if you can still create and sell goblin gliders for a pretty penny, I guess that's what you should probably set yourself up to do. Personally, I'm going to be taking a little bit of time to get my fishing and cooking into order. I love joining random Mythic Plus or raid groups and being able to supply everyone with some great buff food, even if it's not the greatest use of the feasts. Maybe I'll use the cheaper ones. I'll also be taking good advantage of the alchemist in my guild and Mythic Plus group, who has rank 3s of every pot and flask just to make sure my herbs are going as far as possible. Later on in the expansion, I'll probably slip back into my crafting shuffles to enchanting materials to control a good portion of that market for the rest of the expansion. But I feel like some fishing for now. This next week is going to be pretty huge for anyone wanting to make a little bit of gold, so be sure to secure your slice of the pie. What professions are you currently sporting? How are you making gold so far in Battle for Azeroth? Leave all your thoughts in the comments section below. A big thank you to all of our supporters over on Patreon. You can see their names floating by on screen. If you want to join these lovely guys and gals, you can find a link in the description below. Remember to leave a like just below the video before you leave, and if you want to see more, make sure to subscribe. But apart from that, thanks for watching folks, good luck and have fun, and as always I will see you next time.